There is a light that no external flame can ignite and no darkness can extinguish. It is a radiance that emerges not from possessions, appearances, or validation, but from the quiet dignity of self-respect. Self-respect is the recognition that your worth does not depend on applause or approval. It is the invisible armor that shields the mind from disrespect, the inner crown that requires no external crowning. When one begins to cultivate it, they discover that respect given to oneself is the foundation of respect received from the world. Without it, even the greatest achievements feel hollow. With it, even small steps carry a noble presence. The radiance of self-respect shines through the posture of the body, the tone of the voice, and the steadiness of the gaze. It is not arrogance, nor is it pride rooted in comparison. It is not about feeling better than others, but about knowing that you are not lesser. To stand in self-respect is to stand without apology for your existence, your choices, and your journey. This radiance is calm, not loud, firm, not brittle, and enduring, not fleeting. It grows from the soil of discipline and blooms in the climate of integrity. Self-respect cannot be borrowed, nor can it be gifted by another. It is not a title bestowed by society or a prize handed by circumstance. It is an inner contract made with oneself to treat your own being as worthy of honor, to hold your own spirit with the same reverence you might hold a sacred object. When you keep this contract, you stop tolerating what diminishes your essence. Words that insult, environments that degrade, and patterns that erode your strength lose their grip because self-respect rejects them before they can enter deeply. There is a quiet power in someone who walks with self-respect. They do not beg for attention, yet attention naturally follows. They do not cling to validation, yet validation often comes. The radiance is magnetic, for it reflects an alignment within. People may not always understand why they feel drawn to such a presence, but it is the authenticity, the unshakable dignity, that creates the pull. In a world where so many surrender their worth to the judgments of others, the one who respects themselves becomes a beacon. But the path to self-respect is not without trials. It demands sacrifice because one cannot hold on to both self-respect and self-betrayal. Every time you say yes when your heart knows no, self-respect diminishes. Every time you remain silent in the face of what dishonors you, self-respect weakens. And every time you trade your values for temporary comfort, you chip away at your own radiance. To honor yourself often means to endure discomfort, to walk away from what is easy, to stand alone when the crowd moves in another direction. True self-respect does not demand perfection. It does not require never falling, never doubting, never failing. Rather, it is about how you rise, how you correct, and how you return to your path after wandering. It is built not from the absence of mistakes, but from the refusal to let those mistakes define your worth. To look into your own reflection without shame, even after hardship, is a sign that self-respect remains intact. Radiance grows where boundaries are drawn. When you understand that your time, your energy, and your heart are valuable, you guard them with clarity. You stop giving to those who only take, you stop entertaining what does not nurture, and you stop depleting yourself to keep others comfortable. This is not selfishness, it is wisdom. For a vessel that empties itself completely cannot give water to others. A person who abandons their own dignity cannot uplift the dignity of anyone else. By respecting yourself, you not only shine for yourself, but you illuminate the way for others to remember their own worth. The radiance of self-respect also changes the way you face adversity. When storms arrive, you no longer bend in desperation for outside rescue because you have already built an anchor within. Criticism does not wound you as deeply, for you know the truth of your intentions. Rejection does not crush you, for you understand that your value was never dependent on acceptance. Betrayal does not define you, for you recognize that your worth was never in the hands of another. The more self-respect deepens, the more unshakable you become. This radiance is not about dominance or control. It is not about towering over others or forcing them to acknowledge you. It is a presence that exists regardless of recognition. Whether in solitude or in company, self-respect glows in silence. It radiates through the stillness of someone who knows who they are and refuses to be anything less. In this way, it does not compete with the light of others. It inspires them. It reminds them. It invites them to cultivate their own inner radiance, not by imitation, but by self-discovery. To carry self-respect is to live with a sense of sacredness in every choice. The words you speak, the actions you take, the environments you enter, all are filtered through the question, does this honor me? Does this diminish me? With each answer, your radiance either grows or dims. When it grows, you notice how life begins to respond differently. Opportunities align, people treat you differently, and the path ahead seems to open with less resistance. It is not because the world has changed, but because your presence has shifted. The world reflects the respect you first gave yourself. Radiance of self-respect is not a gift you stumble upon once and keep forever. It is cultivated, practiced, and protected daily. It is watered with discipline, nourished with truth, and safeguarded with courage. It grows when you honor your commitments, when you live with integrity, when you choose authenticity over pretense. It glows more brightly each time you refuse to abandon yourself for approval. And though it cannot be seen with the eyes, its presence is undeniable. Those who carry it walk differently, breathe differently, and move through the world as though carrying a hidden flame. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people see it as a void, as emptiness, as something that must be filled with words, noise, or distraction. Yet silence is not weakness, and it is not absence. Silence is presence in its purest form. It is a force that speaks without sound, a strength that reveals itself in stillness, a clarity that arises when all unnecessary noise fades away. To discover the strength of silence is to discover the ability to hold yourself steady when the world pushes you to react, to defend, to prove, or to speak. When silence becomes strength, it teaches us mastery of the self. Consider how most people respond when provoked with words, with arguments, with quick reactions. But silence is the opposite. It is a refusal to be dragged into unnecessary conflict, a refusal to waste energy where it does not serve growth. It is not suppression nor avoidance, it is conscious choice. To remain silent when anger seeks expression is to protect your inner energy. To remain silent when criticism seeks to wound is to maintain your inner peace. This silence does not mean weakness, it means control. It is the space where energy is conserved, where clarity is sharpened, where the heart beats steady while the storm passes. There is also silence within the mind. The noise of endless thoughts can often become heavier than any words spoken aloud. This mental noise pulls attention in 1,000 directions, creating distraction, confusion, and fatigue. The practice of silence, therefore, is not just with the tongue but also with the mind. To silence the restless chatter is to reclaim power from the unnecessary. Imagine what happens when you no longer react to every passing thought, when you no longer chase every mental image or replay every memory. Silence at this level becomes liberation because it is the discipline of choosing not to be enslaved by the mind's constant noise. In silence, one learns to listen deeply, not only to others but also to life itself. When you are silent, you hear what is usually drowned out: the wisdom of your own body, the signals of your breath, the subtle intuition that guides your decisions. You hear the pauses between words, the emotions hidden beneath the surface of speech, the truths that are not spoken but felt. Silence reveals what is often missed because of distraction, and this deeper listening transforms your awareness. What once seemed ordinary begins to reveal depth. What once felt empty now becomes full. Silence is also strength because it resists the pressure of the external world. The modern world pushes for expression, for constant sharing, for opinions to be voiced without pause. Social environments demand responses, reactions, validation. But silence does not seek validation. It does not need to prove itself. When one remains silent, one no longer bends to the demands of constant communication. This creates independence, a strength that does not need approval, a freedom from being controlled by others' expectations. Silence, then, becomes a shield, protecting the inner self from being diluted by the noise of the outer world. At the same time, silence is not simply the absence of speech, but the presence of awareness. To sit in silence requires courage because it confronts you with yourself. Many people avoid silence because in it they meet their own unresolved emotions, their own fears, their own doubts. Yet facing these in silence is where strength is cultivated. You learn to endure the discomfort, to allow emotions to rise and settle without running from them. Silence teaches resilience. It shows that you are not broken by what you feel, and that even the most turbulent storm within will pass when you allow it space. Silence is also creative. Out of silence emerges clarity, and from clarity emerges insight. The greatest ideas, the deepest wisdom, the most profound creativity, they are born not in constant noise but in quiet reflection. The silence allows the mind to settle like water, And when it is still, what was hidden beneath can finally be seen. This is why many of the greatest teachers, artists, and thinkers valued silence as the ground of inspiration. It is the canvas upon which thought paints its clearest picture. Without silence, there is only scattered noise. With silence, there is focus, depth, and vision. The strength of silence also lies in patience. To remain silent when you could speak, to wait when you could rush, to observe when you could interfere. This is discipline, and discipline builds strength. Silence allows time to reveal truth, to expose what is hidden, to bring forward what is genuine. Many conflicts are fueled by words spoken too quickly, decisions made too impulsively, emotions acted upon too recklessly. Silence interrupts this cycle. It introduces patience, and in patience lies wisdom. It is not passivity, but a deliberate act of waiting until clarity arrives. Silence is a teacher of humility as well. To remain silent is to acknowledge that not everything needs your voice, not everything requires your opinion, not every situation is improved by your input. There is wisdom in stepping back, in allowing space, in honoring what exists without interfering. This humility strengthens the spirit, reminding us that power is not always in speaking louder, but in listening deeper. The strength of silence is gentle but unshakable, soft but enduring, unseen but profoundly influential. In the practice of silence, you cultivate self-mastery, discipline, clarity, patience, humility, and resilience. You learn to hold your energy instead of scattering it, to listen instead of rushing to speak, to remain steady when provoked, to face your own depths without fear. Silence then becomes not a void to be feared, but a sanctuary to be embraced, a well of strength from which you can draw endlessly whenever life demands it. There are many ways in which power is expressed in the world. Some believe it is shown through control, through dominance, through the ability to bend others to one's will. Yet, when observed more deeply, this version of power often carries with it rigidity, tension, and even fear. True power, the kind that does not need to announce itself loudly, reveals itself in quieter forms. One of those forms is gentle encouragement. Gentle encouragement does not shout, it does not demand, it does not push another forcefully into action. Instead, it offers space, it creates trust, and it nurtures growth. Imagine a seed buried in the soil. If you were to pull at it, demanding that it grow faster, you would destroy it. But if you allow the earth to nourish it, if you give it water and sunlight, the seed will naturally push through the soil at its own pace. Gentle encouragement is like this sunlight. It provides the conditions in which life can expand without suffocation or coercion. When someone receives gentle encouragement, they do not feel judged. They do not feel that their worth is dependent on immediate achievement or perfection. Instead, they begin to feel supported, understood, and recognized. Encouragement becomes a mirror through which they can see their own hidden strength. Many people walk through life doubting themselves, holding onto voices of criticism, carrying memories of failure. To such a person, even the smallest gesture of encouragement can feel like the opening of a window in a suffocating room. Suddenly, air flows in, light enters. Possibility appears where there was once only heaviness. Encouragement works not because it gives something external, but because it awakens something internal. A gentle word reminds someone of the strength they already hold. A patient smile shows that there is space for mistakes, for growth, for becoming. In this way, gentle encouragement is not about creating dependency. It is about awakening independence. It is not about making another lean on you forever, but about reminding them of their own capacity to stand firmly on their own feet. There is also great wisdom in the way encouragement is delivered. Forceful motivation often arises from impatience. It says, "You must be better, and you must be better now." But gentle encouragement understands timing. It knows that growth is not linear. Some days are slow, some are full of struggle, and others are full of sudden clarity. Gentle encouragement knows how to wait. It knows that waiting is not inactivity, but an act of trust in the natural unfolding of things. The mind itself responds to encouragement very differently than to criticism. Criticism closes the mind, encouragement opens it. Under criticism, the body contracts, the breath shortens, and the heart tightens. Under encouragement, the shoulders soften, the chest opens, and the breath deepens. This is not just emotional but physical. The nervous system listens closely to the tones of life. Gentle encouragement allows the body to relax enough to access its creativity, its clarity, its strength. Gentle encouragement is not weakness. It requires strength to remain calm when others are agitated. It requires presence to offer support when others might choose judgment. And it requires patience to stand beside someone who is still searching for their own way. In this way, gentle encouragement becomes an invisible kind of leadership. It leads not by force but by example. It shows rather than tells. It inspires rather than commands. In relationships, encouragement can transform the way people connect. When a friend, a partner, a parent, or even a teacher offers encouragement, they open a door to trust. This trust is what allows the other person to take risks, to step into unfamiliar paths, to attempt what once felt impossible. With encouragement, failure does not feel final, but simply part of the process of learning. Without it, even small mistakes can feel crushing, leading to hesitation and withdrawal. Gentle encouragement also extends inward. Too often, people speak themselves in harsh voices. They criticize their own progress, scold themselves for not being enough, and replay their failures as if punishment will produce growth. But true growth is rarely born from punishment. It is born from care. Speaking to oneself with gentle encouragement allows the mind to heal from self-judgment. It teaches that discipline and kindness can exist together. To be disciplined does not require being cruel to oneself. It requires consistency, focus, and also compassion when the path is difficult. There is a subtle energy carried within gentle encouragement. It is not loud, but it lingers. A single kind word can stay with someone for years, shaping their decisions and reminding them of who they are capable of becoming. Encouragement, once given, continues to echo in the heart long after it was spoken. Like a pebble dropped into a pond, its ripples reach far beyond the original moment. In a world where harshness and speed are glorified, gentle encouragement is a radical act. It slows things down. It reminds us that life does not need to be rushed. It suggests that every being deserves patience, every soul deserves to be nurtured. And in this nurturing, the true potential of a person begins to shine through. Gentle encouragement is not only something to offer to others, but also something to practice daily. It can be carried in tone of voice, in small gestures, in presence. It can be practiced with strangers as easily as with close ones. A kind word to someone unseen, a smile to someone overlooked, an acknowledgement of effort rather than just results. All of these are forms of encouragement. They remind others and ourselves that growth is possible, that worth does not need to be proven through perfection, that being is already enough. Gentle encouragement becomes a way of life, a constant practice of choosing support over judgment, patience over pressure, presence over neglect. It teaches that even the softest voices can leave the deepest marks, and that sometimes the quietest gestures carry the most enduring strength, and pressure is something that no human being can escape. It comes in many shapes and sizes, appearing in the form of challenges, unexpected changes, responsibilities, or the simple weight of expectations that life places upon us. Some people see pressure as an enemy, something to be avoided or resisted, while others see it as the forge that refines the raw material of the human spirit into something stronger, sharper, and more capable. The difference between these two perspectives is not the absence of difficulty, but the cultivation of grace. Grace under pressure is the ability to hold one's center, while the world around seems to shake and tremble. It is the strength that does not fight recklessly, the patience that does not collapse, and the calmness that allows clarity even in the heat of challenge. When pressure builds, most people react instinctively. The heart rate quickens, the breath shortens, the mind races, and often panic begins to rise. In such moments, the human tendency is to either fight aggressively or flee desperately, both driven by survival instincts. But grace introduces another possibility. It suggests that even under great strain, one can remain composed, breathing with awareness, moving with intention, and thinking with clarity. Grace does not deny the presence of stress, but transforms the way it is carried. Just as water shapes stone not through force but through persistence and flow, grace allows pressure to sculpt without destroying. The cultivation of grace begins with self-awareness. Without awareness, pressure blindsides the mind, striking from unexpected angles and causing emotional turbulence. But when awareness is trained, when one knows the tendencies of their own heart and mind, pressure no longer surprises. It may arrive strongly, but it is met with recognition. One begins to say, here is tension, here is fear, here is doubt. And in that recognition, the pressure loses some of its power. Awareness is the anchor that prevents the ship from being tossed endlessly in the storm. With awareness, one can meet difficulty as a companion for growth rather than as an enemy. Grace also emerges from discipline. A body that has been trained, a breath that has been practiced, and a mind that has been disciplined in silence will react differently to challenge than one that has been left untrained. Discipline is not about rigidity, but about preparation. Just as a bamboo bends in the wind because it has been shaped by nature to yield without breaking, so too does discipline shape a person to remain flexible under strain. The body learns to relax when tension arises, the breath slows instead of quickening, and the mind searches for solutions rather than drowning in panic. This is not an instant reaction but a cultivated response. It is the fruit of consistent practice, small efforts made every day, which eventually show themselves in moments of greatest pressure. In the presence of pressure, many search for escape. They dream of conditions where life is easy, where challenges are absent, where nothing disturbs their peace. Yet such a world does not exist. Life itself is pressure, the pressure of growth, of responsibility, of relationships, of time. The attempt to avoid pressure only leads to greater suffering because it denies the very nature of existence. Grace teaches the opposite. Instead of wishing for pressure to disappear, one learns to move within it with poise. Like a dancer who performs under the bright light of the stage, grace makes the pressure part of the rhythm rather than a disruption to it. There is also a hidden beauty in pressure. When coal is pressed under the weight of the earth for countless years, it transforms into a diamond. The pressure does not destroy, it refines. Similarly, human beings discover their hidden capacities not when everything is smooth, but when life demands more than they thought they could give. It is under pressure that patience deepens, resilience strengthens, and clarity sharpens. Grace allows this transformation to happen without breaking the spirit. It allows one to endure without becoming bitter, to strive without becoming hardened, to succeed without becoming arrogant. Another element of grace under pressure is humility. Pressure often exposes weaknesses, and many resist this exposure because it feels like failure. Yet humility accepts that being tested and stretched is part of growth. To admit, I am under strain and I do not have all the answers, is not weakness but wisdom. Grace arises when humility replaces pride, when one allows the moment to teach rather than insisting on controlling everything. Humility softens the edges of pressure, making it more bearable and more transformative. Grace is not about appearing calm for the sake of others. It is not about pretending that everything is fine when internally one is breaking. Instead, grace is the genuine ability to remain rooted in one's values, to act with integrity, and to stay connected to the deeper self even when external conditions are difficult. It is the art of standing tall without rigidity, of bending without collapse, of moving forward without haste. Grace under pressure is not a mask. It is the reflection of true strength that comes from within. In a world that is constantly shifting, pressure is inevitable. Responsibilities grow, relationships test, challenges arise unexpectedly, and the pace of life continues to accelerate. But the one who cultivates grace does not drown in this movement. They learn to breathe deeply when others hold their breath. They learn to pause when others rush blindly. They learn to listen when others are shouting. They learn to stand in the storm without being swept away. Grace under pressure is therefore not just a skill, it is a way of being that transforms how one meets life itself. In the world we live in, people are often conditioned to wear masks, to perform in order to be accepted, and to project an image that fits expectations rather than expressing their true essence. From early years, the pressure to gain approval begins shaping the way one behaves, speaks, and even thinks. Performance becomes a shield, a way of navigating social structures without standing out too much, without being judged, and without feeling vulnerable. Yet, within that shield lies a silent erosion of self. The further one moves into performance, the further one drifts from authenticity, and that distance creates an emptiness no achievement, no applause, and no recognition can truly fill. Authenticity, on the other hand, is not about pleasing or impressing others. It is about standing in the quiet truth of who you are without the need for constant validation. It means removing the layers of pretense and aligning your words, actions, and energy with the core of your being. The struggle arises because performance is rewarded, society celebrates appearance, polish, and the ability to play roles that fit narratives. But the reward is shallow and temporary, while authenticity may not always be applauded, yet it sustains. It nourishes. It gives rise to a peace that cannot be taken away because it is rooted in truth rather than perception. Consider how exhausting performance can be. Each interaction becomes a stage, each conversation an act, and each moment an evaluation of how well the mask is being worn. The mind begins to divide what is truly felt versus what must be shown. Over time, this division drains energy and creates inner conflict. People wonder why they feel disconnected, why life feels heavy even when outwardly successful. The reason is not a lack of accomplishment, but a lack of authenticity. The deeper the gap between the inner self and the performed self, the more restless and fragmented the being becomes. Authenticity requires courage. To be authentic is to risk rejection, to be misunderstood, and to walk away from the comfort of fitting in. It means being willing to lose approval in order to maintain integrity. This is why many resist it, preferring the safety of performance because performance feels predictable. It follows scripts already written by others. But scripts prevent creation. They prevent spontaneity. They prevent the emergence of a genuine life that is alive rather than rehearsed. Authenticity, though uncertain, allows for true connection. It allows the soul to breathe. It allows one's actions to align with purpose rather than expectation. When one chooses authenticity, there is an immediate shift in energy. No longer is there a need to monitor every gesture, every word, every response in fear of judgment. Instead, there is presence. There is a groundedness that comes from not hiding. This is not recklessness or carelessness, but clarity. Authenticity does not mean acting without awareness, but acting without distortion. It means speaking what is real, expressing what is aligned, and living in a way that reflects inner truth rather than outer demand. The liberation that comes from this choice is profound because it removes the constant burden of performance. Performance is temporary. It fades when the stage is gone, when the audience disperses, when the spotlight is no longer on. What remains afterward often feels hollow because the effort was never for self but for impression. Authenticity, however, remains steady whether seen or unseen. It is not dependent on applause. It does not require external confirmation. It exists quietly, like a flame that does not diminish when unobserved. To live authentically is to cultivate this inner flame, to protect it from being smothered by the winds of opinion, and to trust that it is enough to guide one forward. It is important to recognize that performance is not always malicious or intentional. Often, it is survival. People perform to be accepted in families, in communities, in workplaces where individuality is not welcome. But survival mechanisms should not become lifelong prisons. At some point, the realization comes that living behind performance is not truly living. It is merely existing in a costume that does not belong to you. The path toward authenticity may begin slowly, small moments of honesty, small steps of alignment, small refusals to conform when conformity contradicts the inner voice. These small acts accumulate until the performance begins to dissolve, leaving behind something raw, vulnerable, and real. The paradox is that authenticity, though often feared, is what creates genuine belonging. When one shows up without pretense, the connections formed are no longer with the mask but with the true self. These connections may be fewer in number, but richer in depth. They sustain because they are not based on illusion. Performance, on the other hand, may win the crowd but loses the soul. It creates wide networks of shallow bonds that cannot hold when challenges arise. Authenticity may narrow the circle but strengthens the foundation. The path of authenticity is not about rejecting growth or ignoring refinement. It is not about avoiding learning or discipline. It is about ensuring that all growth and refinement arise from alignment, not imitation. It is about letting self-expression be rooted in what is true rather than what is trending. Performance looks out while asking, what will they think? Authenticity looks inward asking, does this reflect who I am? Performance bends and twists to fit molds, while authenticity breaks molds to reveal essence. Choosing authenticity over performance is a decision to stop negotiating your worth with the world and to start honoring it within yourself. It is a shift from external measurement to internal alignment. It is not an easy choice, but it is the only choice that leads to a life lived fully, not acted partially. It is the only choice that transforms existence from stage play into lived truth, from applause into peace, from illusion into reality. A presence is not simply being somewhere with your body. Presence is the quality of your awareness, the depth of your attention, and the ability to fully inhabit the moment that is unfolding. Many people confuse existence with presence. They believe because they are physically in a space, they are present. Yet the mind drifts, the attention fragments, and their awareness is scattered across past regrets and future worries. To be truly present is to gather the mind, to collect the attention, and to direct it without hesitation into the here and now. Presence is a discipline, a skill, and at the same time a state of being. Attention is the sharpest tool we possess. Where our attention goes, energy flows. When attention is scattered, energy is wasted. When attention is focused, energy consolidates. The secret of discipline, mastery, and inner strength lies in this ability to direct attention consciously. A distracted mind cannot cultivate clarity, and without clarity, presence dissolves. This is why presence and attention are inseparable. They are like breath and body. One cannot exist fully without the other. Modern life has become an environment designed to fragment attention. Devices, notifications, endless noise, and constant stimulation pull the mind in countless directions. Each distraction robs presence. Each moment of divided focus leaks energy. A person who cannot hold attention for more than a few seconds cannot build depth in anything, whether it is work, relationships, or self-understanding. To cultivate presence in such a world is to reclaim your own mind, to reclaim the freedom of where you place your awareness, and to resist being controlled by external interruptions. Presence begins with attention to the body. The body is always in the present. It does not wander into tomorrow or yesterday. It breathes now. It moves now. It exists now. By bringing attention to the body, you root awareness in presence. The rhythm of breath, the sensation of feet touching the ground, the posture of the spine, these are anchors for presence. Through the body, the wandering mind is gently recalled. Presence becomes embodied, not imagined. Attention must also be trained like a muscle. A weak attention wavers, it tires quickly, it becomes seduced by the next stimulation. A strong attention endures, it stays steady, it penetrates deeper. Just as a martial artist strengthens the body through discipline, the mind is strengthened through continuous practice of focus. Meditation, mindful breathing, or simply dedicating full attention to one task are ways to sharpen this inner blade. Presence is sharpened through repetition, through patient return each time the mind drifts, and through the humility of practice without end. Presence is not passive. It is an active engagement with life. To be present is to meet each moment as if it matters, as if it holds something essential. It is to notice the subtle shifts in environment, the quiet tones in a voice, the hidden patterns in your own mind. Presence sees what distraction overlooks. With attention, the ordinary becomes extraordinary because awareness illuminates details previously invisible. The surface of life no longer conceals its depth. Attention carries with it a profound energy. When you give your undivided attention to someone, they feel seen. When you give your undivided attention to a task, it begins to reveal itself more fully to you. Attention is not only a tool of perception, it is also a form of nourishment. Whatever receives attention grows. If you give attention to fear, fear expands. If you give attention to strength, strength expands. If you give attention to silence, silence expands. This is why awareness must be guarded carefully. To be careless with attention is to hand over your energy to forces that may weaken you. The cultivation of presence is also the cultivation of patience. The modern mind rushes. It wants results instantly. It resists slowness. Yet presence requires slowing down enough to truly perceive. It asks you to pause long enough to notice the texture of the moment, the space between sounds, the rhythm of breath. Attention stretched too thin loses depth, while attention given patiently deepens like roots into the soil. Presence allows you to experience reality without distortion. The mind often imposes judgments, expectations, and fears onto experience. These distortions cloud perception. But in presence, attention observes without interference. The world is allowed to reveal itself as it is, not as the mind demands it to be. This clarity is the ground of wisdom. Without presence, one reacts blindly. With presence, one responds consciously. The relationship between presence and attention is circular. Attention creates presence, and presence strengthens attention. Together, they form the foundation for all higher forms of practice, whether it is meditation, martial arts, creativity, or leadership. Without them, action becomes mechanical, shallow, and unconscious. With them, action becomes precise, alive, and infused with meaning. The discipline of presence is not confined to silence or meditation halls. It must be carried into daily life. When eating, give full attention to the act of eating. When walking, walk with awareness. When listening, listen without interruption of thought. These ordinary acts become extraordinary when touched by presence. They cease to be background activities and become opportunities for training the mind. Presence also brings power, not the power of domination or control, but the power of stability. A person who is fully present radiates calmness. Their attention is not easily stolen. They are grounded, unshaken, and clear. This power does not shout, it emanates. It is felt in their stillness, in their ability to hold attention when others are distracted, in their capacity to remain rooted when chaos surrounds them. When presence deepens, time itself changes its quality. Minutes feel expanded. A short moment becomes rich with detail. Life becomes fuller not because more is added, but because awareness perceives more of what already is. Attention opens doors into the vastness of the present, revealing dimensions hidden behind the veil of distraction. The mind always seeks escape from boredom, from discomfort, from stillness. Presence demands the opposite. It demands that you remain, that you stay with what is unfolding, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how ordinary. In this staying, the mind learns resilience. In this staying, awareness expands. Presence is not an escape from life, it is life in its rawest form.